Good evening,
everyone.
everybody.
Welcome to our live session today.
Welcome to Truth in Bikinis.
Yeah, marriage without kids. Is it having a marriage without children? Is it complete? It has always been the culture that once a couple gets married, first thing that is expected of them is children, and especially in a culture like ours in Africa, that's normally the standard. And so today we are just having this argument: is it a standard? Is it complete? Why is it that most couples would rather not, would always follow that path? Does it really mean that marriage is actually incomplete without a child? Is a marriage incomplete without a child? So let's talk about this. Maritabel, you're welcome. Emma Dion, you're welcome. All right, guys. So what do you think? Is a marriage without a child incomplete? And if you say it's complete or it's incomplete, why would you say so? Go on, Matabel.
Well, marriage is not, I think, even in the definition of marriage, marriage does not mean two people get married and have children, or that's the definition of creating a family, not getting married. Generally, we know marriage as a union between a man and a woman together and they become one. So it's been a thing about companionship. It is about companionship. You cannot sit down and say because this marriage does not have children, it's not valid. You understand? You cannot use children as a validity of a marriage because whether you want to say any definition of marriage really does not involve children. Children are, you have them as a choice. You want to start a family. I want to start a family, take care of children. That's something I want to do. Sure. But for me, marriage is incomplete without children. It's not only false, it also doesn't even make sense if you want to use it in any definition type of context.
All right, yeah. So I heard by definition, marriage itself is supposed to be coming together of two people. But I think that there's a root from for this culture. I mean, the culture has some maybe some biblical roots. Yeah, maybe has some. I mean, there's traditional definition or traditional explanation for why people just have made up their minds that once you're married, you must have children. Okay, if we look at it biblically, maybe when Adam and Eve came together, people will argue that, it was just the two of them and all of that, but eventually when they went out, they had to have children, and then I think it just continued like that. And so over time, we've just, I mean, if you get married now in our culture, the first thing everyone is looking out for immediately, maybe after first, second, third month, in-laws, everybody's looking at, okay, how far? No baby born, no baby. Oh no, I want to. In fact, is it got it gets to the point that people actually want you to have a certain number of children. They're thinking the people are having two children is not enough. There are people who say they want to have one child.
In regards to that, I would say that children do not, you can't, okay, children is something that happens pregnancy and procreation is something that happens very naturally in nature. It comes to human beings naturally, it comes to animals naturally. And you cannot say, because you want to say, oh yeah, fine, having children valid makes a marriage valid. It's like, so when you now say, oh yeah, fine, if two people now they have a child, someone gets pregnant and they start a family, but they're not married, you wouldn't call them married, no matter how many, no matter how long they stay together, no matter how many children come from that union. If they are not married, they will not say you are married. You understand? You
Yeah,
cannot,
that's
because children do not validify marriage. Marriage is when two people agree, they get married, they make it official. So, just back up what I'm saying, like children do not indicate or indicate that there are so many people that they will have say and have children, baby mamas will just be having children anyhow, but that doesn't officiate the union. It never really did. You know, it's something that, and it's something that's expected because it's something that comes so naturally. You don't need to get married to have kids. You just have to be a man and a woman and be fertile, and the baby making happens. The baby making starts. So I think that's where it comes from. It's just us being used to be like man, woman come together. You know, they want to be with each other. Normally, children tend to roll out. This is the normal thing what everybody's used to. So it's become a standard, it's become a culture, it's become a setup, you know. Especially with the fact that maybe some people may not be able to have kids, and then they'll be like, oh, you're married, you can afford to, you can have kids, you're not deciding to have kids. It wouldn't make sense to people because of how used we are, how used to the system we are, and how used to doing things that particular way. So yeah.
mm. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, to me, I know we kind of respect people's choices, which is normal. And then any family who aren't ready to bring forth children should not even bring them so as not to make the children suffer or struggle in any way. But making the decision of not and having children like entirely in their whole life, to me it has some kind of leg somewhere. It is like I said before that it is very understanding maybe if the parents decide to give themselves, let's say, 2 years, some might say 3 to 5 years. They want to just use these years to maybe work things out for themselves. Those that have careers that if children comes in, it might likely affect it. Years to reshape things, to grow with their financial status, so as not to bring in children for them to suffer. Or let's say the children delay, maybe they are still believing God for children. It's very understanding. But to just say and decide, maybe two couples just decide not to have children at all, like from the beginning to they live this life, they don't want to have children. To me, I don't seem to really get that. It's the same choice that people deciding not to. Let's just say a boy can just say he doesn't want to be a boy anymore. He wants to be a girl. That's the transgender. So people still say it's by choice, but there are some choices still does not really align. It does not go well. Like the choice is that if people start bringing up choices now, it can be like a corrupt. Let's say it can corrupt the nation, or it might not really go well. So if you're saying that people will like just say we don't want to have children, and then this other family can say we don't just want to have children, If you don't want to have children, you that was born, if they made that kind of decision, you wouldn't have been born in the first place. So like I always say, it's very understanding for people to say, fine, I want to give ourselves some time before bringing children into this world. We want to take our time, we want to prepare. But not just wanting to have children at all. To me, I don't think it's okay. Sha. That's my take.
Yeah, but at the same time, the thing about someone else's choice is that you're not them to understand the place they are, or where, like, the reasons behind that choice. You don't know whether that choice is the best choice for them, right? I believe that everybody's entitled to their choice, so far they are not bringing harm onto anyone, including themselves. So even when it comes to people that are transgender or transsexual, as much as it's far from my own belief or my own way of thinking, I am not them. I do not know how their mental health is being affected. I do not know their psyche. I do not know their. I know nothing about this person that have met me. So no matter how much me in a million years, I can never fathom it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not them. So it's like I'm not the person to judge or even decide or even say what is moral and what, as long as nobody's being put into harm. My only with that one is that children should not be able to consent to changing their gender and all that. And that should be an adult. If anybody wants to do that, they should be a grown adult. But outside of that, people are so entitled to their decision, and it's crazy. Even even at the end of the day, you want to use a biblical standpoint, because I think all of us here are Christians, right? Even if you want to go from a biblical standpoint, no matter how sinful the world would get, or people would do certain things in certain ways that God did not appreciate, he let them, because that's a thing that God just gave everybody a choice, wrong or right. The fact that there's wrong and there's right, you can't choose between which one, you know. And everybody has their own moral compass and all that. So yeah, I never. And if someone told me that deciding to not have children is one of the most selfish things a person can do, and in my mind it's like, yes. So why would you want a selfish person to have children? And I never understand that sentiment of people being obsessed with other people having children and other people giving birth and birth rates increasing, but nobody's really concerned about the care of the children. And when someone says, oh, as a couple you should have children when you get married, it doesn't even come from a logical place. It doesn't come from a logical standpoint. It's based on feelings. It's not even based on an actual, this is wrong, this is right. It's based on feelings. Nobody's getting harmed, nobody's getting hurt. And if you're genuinely concerned about children and parenthood, adoption is a thing. There's so many children that have been left in this world without parents. I saw a video today of this 12-year-old girl. She had three younger siblings. Her parents abandoned them. I didn't say her parents died. Her parents abandoned them. The girl is 12 years old and she's about 6 months pregnant. It was a heavy pregnancy. She should have been about 7 months pregnant, and she's taking care of her siblings. And this girl is no older than 12, maybe 13. And this is as a result of just careless having children without planning. If you were educated a lot more, if their parents were educated or something like that, they would have said, you know what, let us not have children. The language around these children is a very dangerous language, because no everybody will believe that that's the best option. Everybody sees it as a thing to just go and do. Now these children are homeless, they don't have parents. um there's this young girl is being parentified just because let us have children. So if anybody comes to that level of intelligence, because I think it's only really intelligence, a level of intelligence, that can bring you to decide to not have children, because we live in a sorrowful world. you know You live in a very sorrowful world, a very disgusting world, a very sad world, a very sad place. I do not understand why anybody would be excited to bring life into this world. As horrible as it is, yes, there are good things, but you look left and right. There's only so much you can do to try and protect your children. You understand? So it's like when you make the decision to have children, right? Because I don't think the natural thing should just be have children, and then the abnormal thing is not having children. I do feel the standard should be not having children, and then having children is the exception. I don't know if that makes sense. Having children should be such an exception. It should be one of those things. It should be something very hard to do. It should be something that, because these are people's lives. Okay. So yes,
You know, I am not
I think it's totally I think it's totally
in a support.
okay.
I'm not in a support. Okay, okay. I am not in support of people just having children, like just coming to the world. They are not prepared and they have children. No, that's what I'm saying. Even when parents are not mentally okay to bring forth children, it is advisable for them to hold on. But what
Yeah,
I'm
I'm saying,
saying
and
is
what I'm
that
saying is that the
they can give
language and the
themselves
messaging. What I'm saying is that
to
the language and the
prepare
messaging around that idea that like it's odd. You see what you're saying? You're saying it's odd and it doesn't make sense to not have children. And somebody will just hear that and see that and take that as the norm. We need to change the messaging, we need to change the idea, we need to change the way it is viewed, because not having children is out of the norm. Not having children is out of the norm. Even the way you said it, like you saying that it just doesn't make sense. You understand? And as much as you want to say, there are people that will listen to you, people that will hear you in conversation, right? And they will take it as, I should have kids, I should have kids, I should have kids, I should have kids, I should be having children, without reason, without rhyme. Because having children is the norm when it shouldn't. It should be an exception. It should be something that few people decide to make an active decision to do. You understand? So I think that's what I'm
All
saying.
right.
I'm not I get what you're saying, but the messaging should shift.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I think that we are establishing this idea that it's okay. I mean, it's perfect. If you want to have children, it's perfect. Yeah. But the problem we've had over time is the fact that nobody really puts any thought um, into the idea of having children, you know. So it's just an expectation that people have of you, and so you just go ahead and live out that expectation. How about the child that you are bringing into the world? That's what we're saying. There ought to be some intentional thoughts that is being put into the whole process of bringing forth children. It has to be more intentional than we currently have, so that we can avoid this kind of stories like the one that Isabel just mentioned, so that we can, and you can't imagine how many people's experiences are just exactly as what Isabel has mentioned. A whole lot of us grew up in spaces, or grew up in homes where we didn't have basic access to basic amenities of life. And please, we can explain it any other way, but it just boils down to the fact that your father and your mother never really thought about it. Like, they never really thought about the fact that, oh, am I capable of taking on more than one child at a time? Oh, can I maybe do one for maybe the next 3 years? If the economy gets better with us, our personal economies get better, then we can add another one. No, they didn't think about it. The only thing that they thought about was the fact that you can't have one child. You need to have at least four. And inside that four, there has to be one boy, or at least two boys, and maybe two girls, if the Lord shows you mercy. And you know that because of all of this madness, yeah, people have gone on to have 7 children because they were looking for boys, and they put all of those children in such funny conditions. And someone would argue that, oh, it's just to give birth to the children that is difficult. Training them is nothing, and training them is easy. Okay, so why are we not having our lives easy? Like, why are we not going to Dubai for vacation? The people that are going to Dubai, do they have two heads? Okay, why are we not even having access to basic amenities of life, like a good school, for instance? Go to a good school. You go into the public school, they are filled up, the classes are overflowing with children. Overflowing. You have a class with more than 200 pupils, like one. Ah, come on, we don't even want to talk about it. So I think that the idea is more of, why do you want to have children? Are you capable of taking care of them? The idea is the fact that, like Benjamin will say, like, these are human beings and you need to put thought into bringing them into the world. They're not the place that they are probably very comfortable there. So you that you are going to go and bring them out of there, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan for taking care of them? Yes, they are the heritage of the Lord. People will argue that it's the Lord that takes care of children. It's God that used to take care of children. The Lord that pays their fees. It's the Lord that feeds them. It's the Lord that pays hospital bills. Yes, very correct. But you that you are bringing them, what plans do you have for them? And so, even if you go through scriptures, even do you know that the Bible says that is it a wise man will leave an inheritance for his children's children? It means that, as in, your life's plan would even involve the children of your children. And so that, I think, this all outcry is the fact that you cannot just be having children because they say man and woman came together. No, you can't just say, okay, because a man and a woman came together, we must have children. It's the standard. Oh, my parents need children. Oh, my mother needs a grandchild. No, we can't bring it down to that. And so we need to, I think this whole idea is just, can we think about it better? Can couples sit down and talk about it? First time once you
That's
get married is not about you just getting getting pregnant and getting children just because you got married, or bringing forth children. Do you have a plan? We need to change the narrative. We're not saying, oh, it's not your choice to have children. Yes, it's your choice.
yes,
You can have children. But what is the plan? That's what we're talking about.
what I'm
Hello?
saying. People should not be pressured into having, and then children when they don't have the capacity of raising them. That if parents are ready, the plans are good, they have the capacity for children, then what? But if they have the capacity of raising children, then they can stay without having children. That's very okay. If they don't have the financial needs, or they are not ready to be present for the children, to take care of the children, then there's no need bringing children to this world. But all I'm saying is that if they are ready, like they are just, they are okay, they are financially okay, they are presently okay, like mentally okay in all ramifications, and then what is just stopping them? For them to just say, okay, fine, we don't just want to have. But anyone who is not ready, like I said, even if it means couple giving themselves maybe 5, 6 years to the time they are ready to bring forth children, it is not okay to be pressured into having children, because there are some people that just go into marriage, then one year they are expecting children from you. No, that one is the traditional narrative, in which should not be happening, because that's what is causing a whole lot of children suffering today. We see a whole lot of children hurting here and there. So what I'm saying is that until people are ready, the plants are ready, then they can start bringing children to the world. Okay, but not just when you're not ready, then you just bring into the, no, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're ready financially, mentally, and otherwise, then fine, you can go ahead bring into them. But the idea of not wanting to have at all, even if you're okay, it's just having the second thought.
Okay, Emilio. So yes, I hear your argument. I understand your argument. I understand your point. You are for for couples deciding not to get children, deciding not to have children is a no for you, and I mean it's completely okay. Like if you're making that decision for yourself, yes, if you're making that decision for yourself, it's completely fine. You cannot make that decision for another person. I sincerely think you can't make that decision for another person. I realize that there are a number of people who are coming up and saying, oh, they do not actually want to have children. You know, they like the idea of children, they like the culture, they like everything about children, but they don't think they would want to have their own children. And these are Nigerians, you know. And so I kind of think that so, and these are actually Nigerians, and so I feel like, um, yes, while it may look like it's like an unnatural thing, because maybe the natural instinct should be to give. So while it looks like it's an unnatural thing for people to say they don't have children, they don't want to have children, I kind of feel like it's them being true to themselves. Because have you seen the way some parents are with children? You'll be wondering, I mean, you look at them and be like, why did God choose them to give children? Because there will be other people looking for children, but you see these ones that don't even have the time. I mean, there are parents who sincerely do not, who don't care. They don't have the time. They will, if they could, they would have outsourced the care of their children to anybody at all but themselves. You know, and but yet, you know, these people went ahead to have children because it's like a culture. Like if you don't have a child, you are being looked at funny. Or if you say something like, oh, I don't want to have children, I just want to enjoy companionship with my wife. I know it sounds somehow because it's not a thing that we've considered before. But if people are actually coming to say stuff like they don't have children, maybe, just maybe, we should consider and ask them, instead of going off like, oh, you cannot decide such, oh, how about your mother, how about your lineage? Instead of that, do you know that criminals have lineage? You know, all of these criminals, they brought forth children and then they made a lineage. Of what use? You know, what are they teaching the children? What are they training them to become? You know, what examples have they kept for their children? Yet you are talking about protecting or preserving a lineage. We're talking about preserving a lineage. That's why we're in trouble today, because somebody like Abraham thought about preserving lineage, and because he couldn't wait for his son to come, he quickly went and had a child with someone else, and then before you know it, the lineage he was trying to preserve became trouble for him. So I feel like we should look at it again. Like if somebody decides they don't want children, we ought to, rather than say, oh, you can't say that, rather than say that, I feel like the best response would be, okay, so what are your concerns? Okay, so what are the reasons why? You know, ask some real questions that will probably solve or help you understand better why this person is making that decision, rather than saying something like, oh, it feels somehow. You know, the other time you're talking about children making, completing, you know, it's boring to not have children. It's boring to not have children because children are supposed to entertain you. Children are supposed to
Yes, their
entertain.
television, their television, their phone, it's TikTok.
And they're supposed to entertain, you know, make the house lively. But funny enough, they have this. Okay, like this afternoon, I saw a funny scenario. These children came back from school in a particular home, and they were all bubbly, making noise. And the father comes and he was like, he's like, since you people came back, there's not been peace in this neighborhood. And like, I was laughing, like, okay, so this is how they are. They are children for this reason, and so you're looking for peace where you have children. You know, so the reality of it is that children are actually not for entertainment. In reality, when you're thinking that you are bored, I think you should look for a recreation sport or something to get involved with. Children are not your entertainment. Like children are actual projects, like capital intensive, emotionally intensive, financial intensive projects, and so you can't even use them for entertainment. If you're entertained, it will just be for a very short period. After a while, you start to cry. You've seen women give birth, and they are by maybe 1 month they don't want the children again. So I think that we should actually start thinking about it. We should start talking about it. There may be people who don't want it for a season. There may be people who say they don't really want it. We should start trying to understand their reasons so that we can actually have something to grasp. Okay, so let's talk about this. Like, how should we approach these matters? Actually, if there are people who coming now to say, okay, I like the idea of children. I'd love to have my own children, but I do not think that I can invest what's needed to cater for a full human being at this time or ever. What should be our disposition, yes, towards such, so that we can create some sort of environment that allows for bringing in other people's ideas, or allows for us to understand what people actually mean when they say things, not necessarily about, oh, this is what has always been and this is what it is. How do we respond to such, as it's coming? There are people who actually are getting married now and are realizing, okay, maybe we don't want to have children anymore, we want to have kids.
Life, there are things that are there's some decisions and some actions that you make that it's a hell yes, yes. When the answer is just yes, there's no question, there's no looking back. I feel having children should be like that. Um, if you're someone that is well self-aware, you're an aware person, and you're intelligent, and you're together, right, as a person. If it's like, oh, you're on the fence on whether or not to have children, don't have children until you're very sure, you're very well equipped, you're at that place mentally, emotionally, financially, in every way, shape, or form that you are available. Make yourself available, you know. And I feel, yeah, anybody in, because obviously the society will crumble, if everybody just says they don't have want to have kids. But that's the thing. It's, Nigeria, I think, is underdeveloped countries that are really interested in having children. I think the more developed the country becomes, the more educated people become, the less children are born. So yeah, obviously it will be a problem if it's a population decline issue. So anybody that says, "Oh, I don't want to have children," what MM said is very good. Ask them why, and don't ask them why because you're trying to change their mind. Ask them why to try and understand where they're coming from. If it's a situation where they are not sure, ask them why they are not sure, and talk to them. Find out whether it's a good decision or not a good decision. I don't think it should be approached with the general bias of you should have children. I do believe it should be approached with the idea or way of thinking of whether these people can have children, whether they should have children, whether they are equipped, whether they are well enough, well off enough to be able to have kids. Like I said, whether financially,
Yeah, so I'm sincerely, I think we should have open conversations with people actually to know how they are faring. Because even if you want to sell the idea to someone, you want to sell the idea for reasons why they should have children, you ought not to, if you come from the place of judgment, when somebody says, I like children, I want to have children, people who may come from that angle, and so how do you actually approach them rather than going on to maybe Dara, go and open the door for daddy. Go and open for daddy. Yeah, hello guys. The network just keeps going up and down, but so yes, so rather than maybe coming from a place of judgment, I think it's time we try to understand. There are people who are actually scared. There are people who have actual fears, maybe from the way they were raised, from childhood traumas, and they are there and just thinking, I do not ever want to see my child go through that. I do not ever want to bring in my child and you have to go through all of that. I mean, there's a lady that made a point, on an issue like this, like, and she was like, when she thinks about the fact that she's going to raise a child and then they are going to now be trying to keep up with the influences of the environment, all of the other influences, even when they are trying so hard to keep their child on track, that she reconsiders it again, like, do I want to go through this? The fact that you can have a child, you can try, when they say pastors children, they always get into trouble, because people will expect that, oh, you're a pastor's child, how come you are like this? Oh, you're a pastor's child, they expect a lot, from you because you're a pastor's child, something like that. And she's like, she cannot stand the idea of raising their child and having the external influences, and which may sometimes be overwhelming, which may sometimes be louder than their own influence, and before you know it, they have their child turning another, going the exact opposite path, despite all of the investments. So yeah, and that's why I think that we should actually allow people their opinions, talk about what really are their fears. If you've had maybe a childhood trauma that's become some sort of motivation in things like this, allow them talk about it, allow them share what it is that is actually keeping them, what their fears are, you know. Then of course that way you are able to help them, not when you're trying to force not when you're trying to force your opinion on anybody. Yes, maybe you may be right, or you may be correct, or your tradition may be correct, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are able to prevail over that person, for instance, to have a child. If you're able to prevail over that person to have a child, doesn't mean that they will be a good parent, and it doesn't mean that that child will be in good hands. You understand? So that's why the idea of always trying to make your opinion, force your opinion on people, may not be the right way to go. I think that we should rather want to understand why people want to do what they want to do, and then try to see if we can help them also understand, oh, this is where I'm coming from, and this is why I think that this should be. But if you are not ready at this time, then there's really no need for you to go ahead. That's how I see it. All right, so Emelion, go on, you're here.
Okay, what I can say is that before anybody think of bringing children into the world, number one, don't be pressured. Number two, be ready in all ramifications. Be ready. If you're not ready, then you can just the idea of just bringing in children is not advisable. And if you still have maybe fears of, but that's only if you're ready. But still, at the same time, if you don't want to have, it's your choice, no problem. But if you decide to have, but let it be when you're ready. Just be ready and be there for the children. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if Maritabel is still on. Maritabel, are you here? Go on. Last words before we go. Okay, I don't think that. I think Metavel is gone off network issues. All right, so I think that's basically that's where we would be rounding up today's discussion. The fact that um, I think the fact that we are coming to the knowledge or to the conclusion that more thoughts, more thoughtfulness, more plans, more intentionality should be put into the whole idea, the whole thought, the whole plan of bringing forth children. It shouldn't just be something that, oh, it's the culture. There are people who are giving birth to 8 children, 4 children, 5 children because it's a culture, not necessarily because they can afford to cater for those children. I'm not saying that you won't have faith. I'm not saying that you don't do the extra and all of that. But I'm saying that ought to be a bit more intentional because you understand that, oh, this is my responsibility, and I need to actually care enough to say, okay, I can do this at a time. No, there are people who actually say, oh, let's give birth to every child at once, and I often feel like, okay, so if you decided you wanted to give birth to maybe 6 children while you're married, and then you bring them forth all at once because maybe, okay, I don't want age to catch up with them, and then you are trying so hard to keep up with economic issues, to keep up with giving them the best that they deserve, and so it becomes a struggle for some. There are families who struggle like that, to make the choice of a really good quality education for that child becomes a struggle because I mean you have so much to consider at a time, especially when you have more children. And so I think that over time the idea has always been to just do it because that's the culture, and we're saying that it's a wake-up call to do more than just culture, to be a bit more intentional, to be a bit more considerate, yes, a bit more considerate of the fact that, yes, this is an actual human being that I'm supposed to be responsible for, and I have to take that responsibility seriously. Do you understand? Yes, I have to take that responsibility seriously. And yes, of course, God expects you to take that responsibility seriously. God does not expect you to be nonchalant and just leave everything to chance. There are people who make certain comments, and I'm like, how do you say, oh, it's the Lord that does it? Yes, it's the Lord that does all of it, but He really doesn't expect you to be responsible about it because you can. you know so there needs to be a bit more intentional effort put into the taking care of children, put into getting ready for children to come, preparing for children to come. And that's where the whole idea of, okay, is it really incomplete, because there are people who have children because they actually believe, the society is going to say, how is this your marriage complete? There is no cry of a baby. In those days they'll be like, there's no cry of a baby, it's not complete. No, but it's not about what the society thinks. It's about what it's about where you are at that point in your life. It's about if you're ready to take on that responsibility. It's about the fact that you ought to consider that you shouldn't. Maybe your parents put you through some their parents back in those days, they didn't really put a lot of thought to giving birth to children. You go to the village, people just bear children because they can, and then they say it doesn't take anything to care for children. So you have children moving around naked. You have children eating cassava 24/7. You have children eating maybe one kind of food. Diet is not balanced, and then they eat everything, and of course they're happy about it, but that's not the best. That's not the best you can do. Do you understand? And so because maybe you were put through that kind of condition. You went to community school, you're struggling to speak English, that people can even relate to you, and you are telling your child now at this time of life that, after all, at that time we didn't used to even carry food to school. Yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't need to take food to school. We would stay all day long, maybe till 12, and then they would give us 100 now. We'll just go and carry, and we were good, yeah. But you know that a lot has changed, and children maybe, from the reality of things, they want what they want, and a whole lot has changed, and so we need to step up. We can't still be living life at the level that our grandparents did, because how are you going to explain that to your child, that, we can't afford this? And so, yeah, it's okay to be moderate, but I think that if you took the time to actually consider the extra relationship, the extra responsibility, you would be a bit more careful with it. That's how I feel. People would be a bit more careful about it, and it really would not be about, the society expects this of me, or my family expects this of me. Like the young man that came on was telling us that, no, I can't do that. My mother expects this of me, and I'm like, it really is not about your mother. You can't bring it down, to that level. As in, you can't tell yourself that maybe my mother wants 6 children and she has to have all of it through me, and I cannot disappoint my mother. Have you talked to your wife? Have you thought about how you are doing economically, to be able to get it? So all of those sentiments that comes into an important issue as this one really shouldn't be. And so I think it's a call for a clearer thought, to the whole experience, to the whole responsibility. And I think it's a call for a wake up call for parents to be more intentional and more responsible about this. Here, by the way, we have a video on this matter. We had a guest in the studio, and we talked about it at length. So I think just you'll see the link in the comments here. So you get the link in the comments, or you can just um, go through our videos. You find it, marriage without kids. It's really complete, and we are saying that it really doesn't matter. I think that it should be more about where you are at the time. It should be more about what responsibilities you can take on. The most important thing about the marriage is normally the agreement between the both parties that are involved, yeah. And so move on like that. So let's not say something like, you can't, it will not be interesting, it will be boring, sounds somehow. And so, yeah, I think we've come to the end of today's live session. Network has been a bit unpredictable today, and so I think my colleagues have dropped out, and in the last 2 months standing. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Have a beautiful weekend. Thank you. See you again next week. Thank you. Bye.